Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to break down one of Python's fundamental data structures, one that's all about making your code safer and more stable, the tuple. Let's dive right in. So let's start with a question. Have you ever been working with data, maybe a set of important coordinates or some critical app settings, where you thought, I really don't want this to change by accident? How do you protect that data? Well, that is exactly what the Python tuple is for. At its core, it's an ordered collection of elements, which just means everything has its own specific spot. But the most important word here, the one you really need to remember, is immutable. Once you make a tuple, its contents are set in stone. And that's the number one thing that separates it from a list. You know, you can think of a list like a whiteboard. You can add stuff, erase it, change it around. A tuple, though, it's more like an engraved plaque. It's permanent. Okay, so how do we actually go about creating one of these engraved plaques in our code? Well, it turns out it's pretty flexible. You've got a few different ways to get it done. The most common way is just using parentheses, but what's really useful is that you can instantly convert other things, like a list or even a string, directly into a tuple. It's a great way to freeze data. And yep, you can mix and match data types, numbers, strings, whatever you need. And check this out. This is a really interesting little detail. When you use the tuple function on a string, it doesn't just put the whole string in there as one item. It actually breaks it down character by character and gives each one its own slot in the tuple. All right, so you've locked your data safely inside a tuple. Now, how do you get that information back out when you need it? The good news is, if you're comfortable with lists, you already know how to do this. You can use indexing with square brackets to grab a single element, or slicing to pull out a whole section. And here's a neat little trick. That //991 syntax, it reverses the entire tuple for you on the fly. Let's move on to the most important concept, the golden rule of tuples. This is what it's all about. You know, it's one thing for us to just say they're immutable, but let's actually put it to the test. What does Python do if we try to just ignore that rule and change something? So here's our experiment. We've got a simple tuple of numbers. We're going to try to take that very first element, the 0, and change it to 99. Now, if this were a list, this would work perfectly fine. But bam, there it is. Python completely stops us in our tracks with a type error. This isn't just a gentle reminder, it's a hard stop. It's Python enforcing that golden rule and protecting our data from being changed. Now, there is one little twist here. While you absolutely cannot change an item inside the tuple, you are allowed to delete the entire thing from memory. Just use the del statement and poof, the whole tuple is gone. Okay, now that we understand the rules, let's talk about a super elegant and powerful feature that can make your code way cleaner. It's called tuple unpacking. So the basic idea of unpacking is pretty simple. It lets you take every item in a tuple and assign each one to a different variable, all in a single clean line of code. The only catch is you need to have the exact same number of variables as you have items. But this is where the real magic happens, the asterisk or star operator. It lets you grab, say, the first item and the last item, and then it scoops up everything else in the middle and bundles it all together into a new list for you. Just look at this example. The variable A gets the first value, which is 1. C gets the very last value, 5. And star B just collects everything else in between, 2, 3, and 4, into a brand new list. How cool is that? So let's bring it all together. Why should you use tuples? First and foremost, to guarantee your data's integrity. Plus, they're often a bit faster than lists. And here's a big one. Because they're immutable, you can use tuples as keys in a dictionary, something you absolutely cannot do with a list. So now you've got the full picture. The next time you're writing some code, think about your data. Do you have a collection of items that should never, ever change? If the answer is yes, then a tuple isn't just an option, it's probably the best tool for the job.